I think that they are like they aren't. They don't have all the rules and guidelines running through their heads, and I've been doing improv for a long time, so I think that like someone who is willing to get up on stage and participate in this social experiment, combined with someone who is very comfortable in that experiment, and I think that in some ways I thrive in that environment. I think that's just a good combination, and that plus a receptive audience that has witnessed the entire thing go down. It's actually, like, to me, it's easier than I think it looks. Like when I'm on stage with True Plus Two, I'm not thinking, oh my God, how do I do this? What have I got myself into? I think, like, I wish this show was 2 hours long, you know? and you know, the only times it hasn't worked, so I took that show to a couple festivals last year, because I would say that's, like, in my top 5 of, like, long-term projects that I have going on right now. Like, it kind of has graduated from that thing I do every now and then to that thing that I think about a lot. And I took it to some festivals last year, and I was at a festival in Richmond. It's called the Second Best Comedy Fest. I believe their submissions are actually open right now.
Yeah, just saw that.
The rare, shout out to them, because the rare joke name festival that I think actually works. Because their whole aesthetic is that they're not the best, but they're the second best at everything. And I think it's hard to do comedy about doing comedy, and that one works. Their graphic design is stellar. The theater is nice. Go to Richmond. It's lovely. But I was in Richmond doing the show, and someone got up on stage who said that they hadn't done improv before, and they had. And there was this kind of like an over-the-top, very an over-the-top theater kid who's in a college improv group, and he thought I was pulling a fast one on me. And I've done this show probably 40 times the past 2 or 3 years. Easily, he was the worst person I've ever done the show with.
Yeah.
Isn't that bizarre? Because he had done improv before. Yeah. He was trying too hard. He thought it was being cute. He thought it was like, it just didn't work. It fucked with the magic. And I was pissed. Like, as soon as I realized that he had done improv before, I was irritated. And I was like, you're doing this show wrong. Yeah. Shame on you. You know?
So you give him your business card and be like, come take
Like, you're no good at this, so let me show you how to be better at this.
I'm glad you asked about True Plus Two, because I really love that. I think it speaks to a lot of things that I like about comedy, and you know, this is a questionable term, but performance art. You know, I love what performance art is, but performance art sounds terrible. But that is in a way like a highly curated, comfortable version for me of performance art, and I like the idea of traveling with it, because I also really like traveling by myself. Like, that's the thing that I've I a couple of years ago I on an air sex tour. I think Brock, who was coming with me, couldn't come almost last minute, and it was like, I can do it by myself. And I was like, man, traveling by yourself is the shit. It's like when I had a schedule. I just saw a weird Oklahoma sports museum. I'm going to pull over on the side of the road and go spend an hour there. As opposed to like when you're with people and you're like, is everyone here want to go? One person's like, I don't care. And you're like, you're going to be pissed if we go. It's like, when I got my first taste of that, it was like, I love this. So True Plus Two is like, I can do an ensemble comedy tour by myself, and it's just really it's you know, and I love the people I perform with, and I definitely am not implying that I never want to do improv with people who know what they're doing, but I really do love what this has been for me, and I really appreciate the efficiency at which I can pull off the show, because for me a lot of comedy is not only about having like a good idea and then getting good at that idea, it's getting good at doing the idea, which is part why I saluted this podcast for being you're going weekly for a year, because it's like you got good at doing the good idea, not just having the good idea. Like, a ton of us have good ideas. How many of us actually put pen to paper and then do it with any level of consistency, or create that habit or ritual around it? That should be celebrated like the fuck, for sure. So I love that True Plus Two is like, it's all on me. I could, if I really wanted to, I could book a 30-city True Plus Two tour this October and do it 30 times in a row, and I could bring a camera crew, and I could like try to make a documentary. I mean, I could do all that because it's all on me, because I don't have to ask someone permission to do that. I mean, I have to hire the camera crew, but I could do that myself, you know, as opposed to as opposed to like writing a sketch show with 10 people, which has its own merit. It has its own like it's just a different version of doing those things. You know what I mean? So
now I want the True Plus 2 documentary.
I
was like, now I want nothing more than just interviews with those people right after where they're like, I had no idea that I could even speak. Never mind, be funny.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, it's like the beauty of level 1 in just a single show.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, I love level 1. It's my favorite of all the things. Whenever I get to teach a level 1, it's like perfect and wonderful.
Yeah, a level 1 recital is all the love to everyone doing all the things.
Yeah.
But a level 1 recital is probably going to be better than a level like 3 or 4 recital.
Sure.
In a lot of cases, by a lot of metrics, it's going to be better.
I have the most fond memories of improv as being level 1. It's because, like you said, you're not in your head, you're not thinking about it, you're there doing the thing, and you're just having fun with a bunch of people that they may or may not continue on, but you've all like bonded in a way, in this new way, and you probably hung out a bunch because this is a new thing you're doing. And so it's just super exciting, and you get done, and you're like, that's the best. And then later on, you're like, oh, wait, got to think about the structure real quick. Who am I? What's going on? And you start getting your head too much.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
but
the longevity of a career in this kind of thing is that there are ups and downs.
Absolutely.
You feel, you know, you're doing great one time, then you're not doing great another time. You're learning, you're in an uphill battle through some sort of lesson that you're dealing with. Sometimes you have to relearn stuff that you learned at the beginning. But the magic of the initial like spark of it is what I love about level 1. When I see them like get what I'm saying for like the first time, or when they try, even the first time I see them kind of feel sad because it didn't quite go and they don't know why it didn't go, and I'm like, it's all right. I'm like, don't worry about it. You know, this is literally the first time you've ever said words on the stage. Like the fact that I'm telling you like, okay, well maybe don't do that next time. It's like, fine, don't worry about it. Like the first time you get a note where it's like, all right, that's weird, but that's fine. You know, it's beautiful and lovely, and I just love that idea. It's I was like, yeah, now I want the True Plus 2 documentary.
And that's. I think that's the reason. I think that's why you, Amy, have a leg up on a lot of people that are your peers in improv. I feel the same way about Tammy in New Orleans, and like David Hamilton, and like Chadwick in a lot of ways here in Austin. Like when you teach level 1 improv, you are constantly reminded about that joy of discovery and how pure this shit can be. And I said pure a lot on this podcast, but you're constantly reminded about it, and so it's like it's really hard for you to be for someone like, I think you're probably naturally this way anyway, but I think it's hard for someone like you to be like to ever think that improv, like there's negative connotations with improv, or that it's super hard. It's like you're always reminded by these journeys and accomplishments of these people, these babies doing improv.
Yeah.
So it keeps this level of purity that's really exciting.
I'm just sad for the people who are negative. That's what happens to me.
Sure.
I'm never like, I'm all positive about it, and then they say something, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry that you've darkened yourself in that way. That's not going to work out.
I'm a should guy. That's that's my personal big problem is I'm a should guy. Like, so after scene's over,
should have done this.
Right? I'm always, and I've had many debates at the theater about like, well, maybe there was a better choice, just because I'm wanting to make myself better and kind of learn from that. But there are people that don't look at it that way, and it changes how they improvise, and I think they're able to have more fun because they're not worrying about the should, and they're living that this is what it was, this is all it'll ever be. Have fun with it, do it, move on.
There is no should. Should doesn't exist.
We'll argue offline.
No, I was like, I swear to God, improv only exists in that one moment. There is no should. You want a should? Keep working on sketch. That's the beauty of sketch. You can shoot all day with sketch.
That's one of the reasons I started improv, was because I wanted to do sketch more, because I did sketch in college, and it was probably about the time you guys started doing cold kind of stuff, about 2005, 2006 is when I got out of college, and there wasn't improv. It like really wasn't a thing that was brought up. But I wanted to do improv so that I could try to do more sketch, and I could get new ideas flowing and just kind of feel out a scene, and be like, oh, maybe. And then that's where the should kicks in. Is like, because if you're improvising for sketch, then it's like you do a thing, it doesn't quite work, you go back in your mind, and you're like, maybe it should do this. and try to form the scene there.
Yeah, I have a hard time with that kind of thing. You know, like the Second City model of using improv to like build sketches. I don't know. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I've had a lot of great sketches pitched to me that somebody opens up their conversation with, like, so I did this improv scene and it's inspired me to do that. I'm like, great, and it ends up being a nice sketch. But I don't know, just personally, it's just real hard. I just want to live in that moment and then just like let that moment fly away.
I think it's how I'm doing it in my mind a lot of times when I start writing sketches. Like, I'll just start somewhere and then just kind of flow it out, you know, and I'll just be like, this director would say this, and, you know, and it goes down. So I don't necessarily have everything planned out. And then when I get to the end, I'm like, oh, you know, it would make more sense. And then I'd go back to the first page and be like, add a joke here, add a joke there. And so that's how my brain is working, kind of in an improvised way. Is like, well, this, then this, you know, then, you know, and continuing on that way, knowing that I need to use kind of the standard, if this, then what, in 3 beats or 5 or whatever, and heighten. But so yeah, I haven't taken something I've done on stage yet and been like, that should needs to be on sketch, and done that. But I know there are people that do that, and that sounds hard, and also a little strange, because then you get into like credit of writing to me, and then you're like, I was on stage with 4 of the people who created it, you know. And
yeah, I can see that being a thing to be concerned about.
Absolutely,
for sure. Yeah. Like, who owns this idea that was improvised? Right. Of course, I think a lot of times you could solve that if your gut tells you that like that was a good scene. I think you just go up to them like as soon as you possibly can after the scene and just be like, I really want to turn that into a sketch. If people don't do sketch that are in that scene, I think most of the time they're going to say, yeah, that'd be cool. Tell me when I can go and watch it. Yeah. But if you got people who are like competitive and who also do sketch, that might be a little bit of like, well, I want to write it too. And you're like, well, you're not in my sketch group. And then they're like, well, then I don't want to. And then it's just like, well, conversation's over at this point, you know?
Yeah. Get the lawyers involved. It's fine.
It's always, the more often you can involve lawyers in your comedy, the better.
That actually sort of leads me into the next thing that I wanted to chat with you about. The thing would be you've developed businesses with this art, not just the theaters themselves, and built that, and then, you know, festivals like Hell Yes Fest and stuff like that, but you're also going on tour. You had Air Sex that became a business that you've been doing, and then you just go in general on tours. How has that changed the way you've built it, and like how is that formed for you? Because you've gone from I loved improv, I figured out how to do it, let's do our own thing, we built the theater, everything went great, and then you're like, I love New Orleans, let's go back there, 2 cities, everything's great, and now you're on the road all the time, you're just doing so many different things. How'd you get to this part, and like how's your brain changed based on that?
Yeah, that's a big old meaty question. I love talking about it. I think for me a lot of it comes down to I've been DIY, you know, do it yourself to my core for a really long time. So it's like, I think as long as I can. And that part actually I did get, I think, from my dad. I think my dad would always talk about wanting to open up his own hamburger stand, his own snowball stand. You know, he was always. I think he planted those seeds in me a lot, like doing it by yourself. And I was just always very attracted to like, oh, it would be cool to do this, to be a part of that thing that I see that I like. Well, then just do it. Then just do your own version of that. And I never took a business class. I never took a marketing class. I wasn't in college, you know, studying this stuff. But what I did always appreciate and feel attracted to was were people like taking chances and taking risks and you know, where the end game was something that made them extremely happy, and I'm very fortunate too that I have been a part of things that have completely failed, where the recovery process was where I learned so much from, and that was kind of like my business school in a way, and you know. I know I'm lucky, and I feel very, very lucky every time I get into a rental car and I close the door and I pull off for the first time. I'm like, I'm going on fucking tour again. Like, I love this. Like, it's never lost on me. But But I have been on tours where I came back home. It was like that cost me $1,000